The air was fresh, and I was enjoying my coffee in a flannel robe when a chainsaw's scream broke the silence. I thought it was a neighbor trimming branches until I looked out my window and saw three men in orange vests ripping into my land. One held a measuring wheel, another had a clipboard, and the third revved a chainsaw inches from the oak I'd planted with my dad, before he passed away in the center. Dictating to them like a warlord stood Patricia Hensley, the HOA president, clipboard in hand, her face aglow with entitlement. My blood seethed. I flung my coffee onto the lawn, stormed out barefoot, and when the chainsaw man approached my tree, I pulled out my phone and called Sheriff Bennett. He answered on the first ring. "They're here," I snarled. "Bring cuffs." 10 minutes before I'd been basking in what should have been a peaceful Sunday, my property that was left to me by my father sits just outside the creeping reach of an aggressive HOA development that's inched closer each year. Dad purchased this land long before the HOA, and we lived unencumbered by their rules, paying county taxes and minding our own business. Trouble began last year when Patricia became HOA president. She stopped by with a newsletter, departing with a scowl when I told her I wasn't in her jurisdiction and never would be since then. Strange things occur. Misdirected mail, slanted trash cans, even a laminated violation notice post on my shed. I brought it to Sheriff Bennett, who laughed, saying she was test for weakness. I thought she'd back down. I was mistaken. Seeing those men walk across my property like it was their own snapped something inside me. I asked to know what the clipboard man was doing. He grumbled about lot expansion and pointed to Patricia, who waved the smugness of a tyrant with a statue unveiled. I told them to halt. Patricia walked over, waving papers, chatting of a meditation pavilion for community wellness, insisting my land had been reclassified as common use following an annexation vote. "You should have read your mail," she jeered. The vote was carried 6 months ago. My hands were shaking in rage. Dad and I constructed this cabin, dug each post, set that oak to stake out our land. It wasn't mud. It was our heritage. Patricia didn't mind. I said to her, "Leave now, or I'll call the sheriff." She nodded to the chainsaw man. "Go ahead and take the tree. He has no standing." That's when I phoned up Bennett Sheriff's cars, speed into view. As the chainsaw made its cut into my oak tree, Patricia remained arms folded like she was christening a new age. I stood with her, same position, holding my deed and property records. Sheriff Bennett walked. The chaos snatched my papers and glared at Patricia. She shoved her own folder, poorly printed. No official stamp at him. He queried whether she'd submitted it to the county. She faltered. He queried whether I'd signed an HOA contract, not officially, but by propinquity, she replied. Bennett chuckled. He walked over to the contractors, who confessed they were merely instructed to dig. Reassured by Patricia that everything was lawful. "You wish to bring charges?" Bennett inquired me. I nodded. The contractors were cuffed quietly, but Patricia blew up, demanding my arrest for obstruction. Bennett smirked. "You trespassed, forged papers, and destroyed a landmark tree? You're lucky he's civil." Her face flushed as neighbors converged, observing her empire crumble. This wasn't merely about land. It was about her perception that she could rewrite reality. The battle was far from over, and Patricia had no idea the tempest she'd unleashed. The sirens dropped, but tension clung like smoke. Bennett remained as his deputies led the contractors off Patricia, gripping her crumpled folder, declined my sarcastic invitation to sit on the porch, telling me I'd regret it. Bennett snorted, "Unless you've got a county deed. Then you're the trespasser, Patricia." I retrieved my firebox, placing on the 1970 deed, a 2006 survey, and an aerial photo establishing my land's independence. Patricia perused them, hoping for a loophole asserting a transitional buffer zone. Bennett shut her down. "No such thing. You can't vote dirt into your control." Her composure flashed, but pride returned. She promised to come back with her lawyer and board. I told her to bring them all the face more than me. Bennett drew a restraining order. I refused, wanting her to overplay her hand after she stormed off. Bennett helped clean the damage. The oak's notch was shallow, but vulnerable. He set up an arborist warning. "She won't quit." I knew he was right that night. I went through Dad's records, discovering a 20-year-old letter denying HOA inclusion, notarized and county filed. Dad had anticipated this. The following morning, the contractor with the chainsaw showed up. Apologetic, Patricia had brought them in through a suspicious bidding group, paying cash and asserting full authority. She'd instructed them to disregard me, vowing no legal resistance. He'd almost lost his license and was giving a statement to Bennett. I expressed gratitude, handing Bennett's contact at the county office. The registrar confirmed no annexation was in place. I received a notarized letter informing my land's independence. Patricia's email. Last opportunity to solve peacefully when left unopened. Submitted as evidence. She was bluffing. But I held every Ace Records law and paper trail she'd return again, and I'd be prepared to bring down her empire. The next storm wasn't weather. It was Patricia with lawn chairs, lemonade, and 6 HOA board members playing official. They parked just off my land, setting up tables, like a mock Patricia flanked by 2 nervous suits. Probable junior lawyers stood a bullhorn calling me like a delinquent. I ignored her. She said I'd missed mediation meetings, and they'd come to seal property joining her. Words were rubbish, but her tone yelled verdict. I moved to my fence line 1 toe over, and its court dates and criminal histories. She called it a misunderstanding I'd escalated by refusing neighborhood harmony. She was constructing a tale portraying me as the recalcitrant loner, thwarting advancement. She babbled about good health and emerald intentions, her board agreeing like dolls. But I stepped into position. I alerted my neighbor Ellen, who arrived with laptop and speaker. Ellen, a records collector, played a tape from her front porch cam. Patricia 2 weeks before muttering, "Fake the vote, he'll never know that cabin dude's a hermit." The board and others froze with a gaping second, and a third stepped back. Patricia screamed it was doctored, a privacy violation. Ellen clarified it was legal already. With Sheriff Patricia's script unraveled, the suit squirmed. One muttered about verifying details board members questioned her. She dodged ranting about my smear campaign. Then Tom, the quiet HOA vice president, spoke. He'd reviewed the bylaws. No forced annexation existed. He asked if Patricia had my consent. Her silence damned her. Tom dropped his badge. Quitting, 2 others followed one. Tearfully betrayed, Patricia begged them to remain. But the crowd, curious neighbors, had heard enough. A squad car came. Invited by Tom Bennett. Inquired if I desired intervention. Let her continue, I responded. Patricia called for my arrest for libel. Bennett gave her a statement for the investigation she paid as the board left, packing up to leave her in solitude. I served my final blow. Next time, bring a lawyer and a miracle evidence does not lie. The tide had shifted, but Patricia's empire was a single audit from falling the following morning. An arborist treated the oak. Advising the cut attracted pests, neighbors drove by, providing support of pie honks. Thumbs-ups, I wasn't partying. Patricia would regroup later that afternoon. The measuring wheel contractor assured she'd employed bogus paperwork, a non-existent company logo, and cash incentives to expedite the job, expecting I'd remain silent. He'd given Bennett a statement that evening. Ellen's nephew Mark, a retired accountant, discovered Patricia's fraud $10,000 in HOA funds diverted to her beautification account for personal upgrades. Deck windows, hot tub Mark's audit was ironclad. We sent it to Bennett, who took it to the DA. The investigation now included fraud, misappropriation, and property crimes. The HOA collapsed, 3 additional board members resigned, and Tom froze all projects, initiating an open audit. Patricia's newsletter blaming radicals. Failed, a local newspaper published HOA Tyrant's Fall, listing her offenses. She was subpoenaed publicly. Days later, she showed up at my fence alone, providing a compromise. I gestured to my new sign. No trespassing, federal investigation in progress. She departed defeated. The courtroom was empty, but effective presidents, export members, contractors, county witnesses. Patricia sat stiff, her lawyer rushing. I remained at ease. My proof of fortress deeds, photos, documents, the DA presented her crimes, forgery, trespassing, misuse of funds. Bennett testified, then the contractors, admitting her cash payments and deceptions. Mark explained the audit linking funds to her house. Her lawyer's confusion defense collapsed under my testimony. Dad's records, no vote, no consent. The judge ruled fines, permanent board removal, civil restitution. Patricia sat frozen, her empire dust. The HOA elected a new board under Tom, who formed an oversight committee. I declined a liaison role but helped create Know Your Lines, a dispute resolution initiative at the Fence Line Festival. Neighbors celebrated with barbecue and music. The oak stood tall. Healing Jerry handed me Patricia's letter. Half apology, half excuse, citing therapy. I set it in my shed next to her phony vote under a plaque. Nothing crosses without permission. Patricia was gone, my land safe guarded by truth, community, and defiance. If someone attempts again, they'll have to deal with a neighborhood that's finally awake.